So I have a friend, Mark, and Mark is a member of the U.S. Army. And now, being a part of the Army, that means he is paid by the federal government. And with the government shutdown a couple weeks ago, this meant that he was going unpaid. But at the same time, he was still working. So with that, he was really stressed out. You know, by being uninformed about what was happening, he had no clue what was going on. He didn't know when he was going to get paid, and that just caused a lot of stress for him. You should listen to my speech because by being informed about the budget process, continuing resolutions, and the debt ceiling, you will know how this affects you directly. According to Marcia Clement, writer for The Politician, when government needs money, there are two things that usually happen. Higher taxes are made and federal cuts are made. And with federal cuts, students like you guys will be the ones directly affected as well. Because community colleges are public schools and public universities will have money cut from them. So this means less classes, less professors, and less programs. In this speech, I will inform you about the budget process. And in the budget process, there are 3 steps to it. First, I'll inform you about how the president makes the executive budget, how he drafts it. Second, I will inform you about the continuing resolutions, the debt ceiling, and how Congress comes into play. Thirdly, I will inform you on how it is then passed and how the budget is authorized and then passed into a bill. First of all, the president has the duty of drafting the budget. And there are 2 parts to it. So, in the first part, he has to draft pretty much everything for the next fiscal year. So this involves the revenues, the spendings, and which programs they're going to be spending it on. And this is for the first and next year. And secondly, he has to come up with a strategy which involves the next 3 to 5 years. This is more of a long-term plan. It's not as sketched out as the short-term plan, but this gives us guidelines to follow for the next 3 to 5 years. And this also involves a rough estimate on how much money we're spending. Approximately from the previous year, from 2011 to 2022, estimated is about anywhere in the market from $3 to $5 trillion. With that given, then the president has to follow a set of guidelines. The Congressional and Accounting Act of the Budgeting and Accounting Act of 1921 pretty much established the guidelines for the presidents to follow and where and how to spend his money, and also this established the Bureau of the Budget, also known as the Office of Management and Budget now. And what they do is pretty much they assist the president in drafting the budget. But the thing is, it hasn't always been like that for every president. Some presidents have had just no say in the budget. Presidents such as George Bush the first, he was more involved with domestic affairs. Such as the war. And he wasn't really involved with the budget. And what this caused was pretty much the president was really uninformed what was going on, and he didn't give the right response to the people. Presidents such as Bill Clinton, he was more involved with it. He actually worked with the office instead of letting them draft it up. There have been situations where the office have been the only one who has drafted it. They have had the most say in it. So it's very vital for the president to be involved, but each president has to have their own styling in it. And with that, the president really has to get involved. If not, people will not know what to do. All right, now that I informed you about the president's role in it, I will inform you about Congress's role and continuing resolutions. Now, continuing resolutions, they're pretty much adjustments to the budget. They're more like a band-aid to the situation, and what this means is that these were not implemented before in the budget. So while we say we have a budget set up, there are programs. It's pretty much an itinerary of where the money is going to go to. And continuing resolutions is when government programs, they need money and they don't have it, when it was not planned out, when there are federal spendings that are needed, pretty much the Congress adjusts to it, and that's when they give continuing resolutions. Now these can adjust how much they can give. They can adjust if they're getting more or less to federal organizations, but usually they get cut on the amount, because that's when the debt ceiling comes into play. When we need extra money, we're taking out money that we don't have. So we have a budget set up, and we have to follow that budget. We have to follow that guideline. We have a set amount of money that we want to spend, and when things like continuing resolutions come into play, when we need extra money, this is when we start taking out more money. But this is when we hit the debt ceiling. The debt ceiling is pretty much, it is the limit that Congress has set. They have said, hey, we can't pass this. You know, we are at all-time low, and we don't want to pass this. And by trying to avoid that, we are cutting down on spending. Obviously, this has been affected by everyone, and higher taxes have been given. And now, with that, I would like to move on to a third, how it is passed into a bill, and then how it is passed into a bill, then authorized. So pretty much, this budget is just like any other bill. Just like a bill, it is drafted, then it is drafted, sent for review, then sent to the president. It is just the same. So pretty much, the president has drafted it, and then it is sent to Congress. Congress has to pretty much review and make adjustments to it. So pretty much, just like we had a couple weeks ago, we had a government shutdown. That's when the government couldn't agree to it. So pretty much, the government has a calendar they have to follow. It runs from September 30th to October 1st, and during that time, they have to come to an agreement on what they're going to spend money on. And apparently, as you guys witnessed, as you guys were a part of the government shutdown, they couldn't come to an agreement, and that's when everything paused. That's when we had to come up with continuing resolutions to keep some of our unnecessary federal programs keep continuing, but at the same time, they had to come to an agreement. And so pretty much the authorizing committee have to authorize the amount of funds that will be used for the budget plan, and then it has to go through another committee which will decide on where the funds will go and how much of each organization will get in each fund. So pretty much they break it down onto what level and how much each organization is getting. And with that established, they then have to send it to the president. And either that from there, the president can either veto and they can pass it. And just like any other bill, if the president vetoes it, then Congress, with 2/3 of Congress votes, they can override it with Congress rule, thanks to the separation of powers, and with this will allow the bill to be passed. Now that I have Alright, in this speech I have informed you about the budgeting process, continuing resolutions, and about the debt ceiling. Firstly, I informed you guys on the president's role and how the president steps in and drafts the budget. Secondly, I have informed you about Congress's role and how they involve continuing resolutions to the debt ceiling. Thirdly, I have informed you about how Congress then authorizes it and passes it into legislation. I hope you guys will take this information to when you guys vote for the first time, and you guys make a wise choice, and so you guys know where your money's being spent, and you guys make a well-informed vote. So when you guys make a vote, you guys know where your money's going to. You guys know how Congress is spending its money. You guys know exactly how this will affect you directly, and not be like my friend Mark, who was uninformed and did not have a clue on how this was going to take place. Thank you.